Willow Creek had always been synonymous with peace for Violet Anderson. The quiet streets, friendly smiles, and the constant sound of birds singing on sunny mornings. It was in the simplicity of that small town that she felt at home. But sometimes, it's in the shadows of tranquility that the darkest secrets hide. When Violet returned from university full of plans and hope, she imagined finally repaying everything her parents had done for her. Robert and Margaret Anderson were respected figures in the community, examples of hard work and honesty. The small print shop that had supported the family for decades seemed like a symbol of this simple yet successful life. Violet wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to continue the legacy they had built. But deep down, something felt off. On her first morning back, she awoke to the familiar hum of the printing machines. A mix of nostalgia and excitement coursed through her as she prepared to dive headfirst into the family business. Breakfast was served, and beside her sat her younger sister Samantha, beaming and full of stories to tell. Life seemed perfect. "Ready to get started, V?" Samantha asked, the affectionate nickname for sister. Violet nodded, a smile on her face, but inside there was a small, almost imperceptible shadow of doubt. Yet, in that moment, she pushed it aside. She was too happy to be back. Her first day at work was unsettlingly quiet. Violet remembered childhood days when the print shop was bustling with a constant flow of customers and the phone ringing off the hook. But now, the shop was different. There were few orders, little activity, as if business had slowed to a crawl. And still, something didn't add up. How could her parents maintain such a comfortable lifestyle? The new car her mother drove, the trip she had heard about, the recent renovations to their home. How was all of this possible? That night, during dinner, Violet couldn't contain her unease any longer. "Dad, the volume of work at the print shop, it's down, isn't it? I remember it being much busier before," she casually remarked, trying not to sound worried. Robert looked up from his plate for a moment, and the atmosphere at the table became tense. "We're doing fine, V. Business is stable. Don't worry about it, it's just a transition to new times." It was a response that should have reassured her, but her father's smile seemed more forced than genuine. Her mother, usually so talkative, remained silent. Samantha, always attentive to family conversations, glanced at Violet with curiosity but said nothing. Something was definitely wrong. In the following days, Violet began to observe more closely. Small details stood out to her. Files locked in drawers that used to be left open. Orders with absurd quantities of printing that never seemed to be delivered to actual customers. And then there were the hushed conversations between her parents, always abruptly interrupted when she entered the room. They were hiding something, and Violet felt it in her bones. It was on an otherwise ordinary afternoon that Violet decided to dig deeper. Alone in the print shop's office, she discovered an old, dusty file hidden in the back of a locked drawer. Inside, there were documents that made no sense. Names of companies she had never heard of, amounts far too high for simple print orders, and a client's name that made her shiver. A name she knew was associated with illegal activities in the area. Her heart raced. The cold knot in her stomach that began as a slight discomfort was now turning into a silent panic. Everything inside Violet screamed for her to stop, to leave that file where it was, to pretend she had never seen anything. But she knew it was too late. She was entangled in something much larger. Much larger. Back home, Violet tried to keep up appearances, but fear and suspicion gnawed at her. At night, lying in bed, her mind spun in circles. "Are my parents involved in something dangerous?" she wondered, trying to calm her racing heart. "How is this possible? They've always been so good." But that perfect facade she had always believed in seemed to be starting to crumble. The next morning, during breakfast, she confronted her father more directly. "Dad, what's happening with the print shop? I saw some documents that don't make sense. This isn't just a dip in business, is it?" Robert stared at her for a long moment, and the silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. "Violet, you're tired. You don't need to worry about these things. Your mother and I have everything under control." But the tone of his voice, the tense glance he exchanged with his wife, were enough to confirm what Violet feared. Something was very wrong. And she knew she was about to find out what it was. And in that moment, unbeknownst to Violet, The pieces of a dangerous puzzle were already shifting. And when the truth came to light, there would be no turning back. The air in Willow Creek began to weigh heavily on Violet's shoulders, as if the entire town was harboring the secret her family guarded so closely. Now, there was no ignoring it. What she had discovered at the print shop was just the beginning, and with each passing day, the feeling that something terrible was about to happen grew stronger. Violet needed answers. That afternoon, after yet another restless shift at the print shop, she decided to follow her father. Robert had mentioned something about a special delivery, but the tone in his voice was different, heavy with tension. Violet knew he was hiding something, so she resolved to track him from a distance, remaining unseen. Her heart raced as her father's car wound along the dirt road, leading to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Why was he going there? Without being noticed, Violet parked her car a little way off and quietly got out, following him on foot. Hidden behind some trees, she watched as her father met with a suspicious-looking man. They exchanged a few words, but she couldn't hear what they were saying. However, what she saw was enough to freeze her blood. Her father handed over a large folder of documents to the man, who examined it carefully. In return, the man gave him a thick envelope. Money. A lot of money. Violet swallowed hard, and what remained of her worldview crumbled. This was real. Her father was truly involved in something illegal, something dangerous. When Robert left the warehouse, Violet stayed there for a while, paralyzed. Now, she knew she could no longer ignore the signs. Something very big was at stake. Back home that night, Violet confronted her mother. The words spilled out uncontrollably. "Mom, what's happening? I saw Dad. I followed him, and I saw him exchanging documents with a man. This can't be normal. Are you involved in something illegal?" Margaret turned pale, her hands trembling as she held her cup of tea. The cozy living room suddenly felt too small to contain so much silence. She tried to remain calm but couldn't hold her daughter's gaze. Sweetheart, you don't understand. It's not what it seems," she began, hesitating. "Then explain it to me, Mom, because what it seems like is that you're doing something very wrong." Violet's voice was shaky but resolute. She wanted the truth. Margaret took a deep breath and looked away, as if the weight of it all was too much to bear alone. "We did what we did to protect you, to keep the family together." "Protect us?" Violet was incredulous. "You're putting everyone in danger. Who are you protecting us from?" Her mother's silence was deafening. In the days that followed, Violet's unease grew. She couldn't sleep well, and the feeling of being watched followed her wherever she went. Doubt turned into fear, and fear quickly evolved into a silent paranoia. Then, one day, while she was alone in the print shop, her phone rang. The voice on the other end was cold and unyielding. "Violet Anderson, we think it would be wise for you to stop asking questions." A chill ran down her spine. "Who are you?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you don't want to get involved in what your parents are doing. Trust me, for everyone's sake, leave things as they are." Before she could respond, the line went dead. Violet stood there, frozen, the phone still in her hand, fear swelling inside her like a shadow. Now she knew it wasn't just a suspicion. They knew she was getting too close to the truth, and they were willing to do anything to keep the secret. But this didn't stop her. That very night, she began to dig deeper. She sifted through every document, every piece of paper she could find in the print shop. And that's when things got even darker. She uncovered hidden transactions, large sums of money flowing through clients she knew didn't exist. And then, something she could never have imagined, the involvement of the town sheriff, Sheriff Thompson. The sheriff, the one who was supposed to protect the town. He was part of the scheme. He was in on it. With this discovery, reality hit hard. She couldn't trust anyone, not even the authorities. Everyone was compromised, and Violet was more alone than ever. Finally, after relentless investigating and feeling cornered, Violet confronted her parents one last time. That night, the silence at the dinner table was suffocating. Violet stared at her father, a mix of anger and despair bubbling inside her. "I know everything," she said, her voice low but steady. "I know about the scheme, I know about the sheriff, and I know you're being coerced. But why? Why did you get involved?" Robert lowered his head, unable to meet his daughter's gaze. Margaret squeezed his hand tightly, tears in her eyes. "We had no choice, Vi." Margaret started. "It all began as a means of survival, but things spiraled out of control, and now we're trapped. Trapped in a cycle of fear and threats." Robert finally spoke, his voice heavy with regret. "They have us in their grip. If we try to escape, they'll destroy us, and destroy you too." Violet felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She wanted to scream, wanted to blame her parents, but at the same time, she saw the desperation on their faces. They were trapped, and now, so was she. Violet knew she was at a crossroads, to protect her family or to expose the truth and end it all. But with every step she took, danger drew closer. Now, more than ever, she needed to decide who she really was and what she was willing to sacrifice. As the nights in Willow Creek grew longer and darker, Violet found herself in an emotional labyrinth. The truth she held wasn't just a burden, but a double-edged sword consuming her with moral dilemmas. What to do with the secret weighing down her family? Could she turn them into the police, expose the sheriff, or keep everything quiet, protecting those she had always loved? Before we continue, we want to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you were in Violet's shoes? Would you choose to reveal the whole truth or stay loyal to your family? Write in the comments and share your opinion with us. That night, while the town slept, Violet sat in her room surrounded by papers and notes she had made during her investigation. The weight of her decision rested heavily on her, and every breath felt like it echoed in her mind. She needed to act, but how? Time was running out and the criminal group was closing in. With her eyes fixed on the window, she saw the light of a car slowly passing down the street. The feeling of being watched unsettled her. Was it the group? Or just a coincidence? This thought drove her to devise a plan. Violet began gathering evidence. With her phone hidden, she recorded conversations with her parents, trying to capture any mention of the scheme. She collected documents, and most importantly, she decided to use Sheriff Thompson as a key piece. If she could expose his corruption, maybe it would trigger a chain reaction that would dismantle the criminal group without her family paying too high a price. The next morning, adrenaline coursed through her. Violet decided she would confront her parents once more. "We need to talk," she said, determination shining in her eyes. "I have a plan, but it's risky. We need courage." Margaret's eyes sparkled with hope and fear at the same time. "Vi, this is dangerous. You can't play with fire. If we do nothing, it will only get worse. They're watching us, the sheriff is involved, and you can't keep going on like this." Violet knew the confrontation was necessary, even if it was painful. As the day progressed, Violet prepared for the final confrontation. She decided to go to the sheriff's office, armed with the evidence she had gathered, determined to expose the truth. But as she walked toward the station, a feeling of doubt enveloped her. She could be putting her parents in danger, and the weight of that choice almost paralyzed her. When she finally arrived, she found Thompson at the front desk, smiling and chatting with a group of friends. However, upon seeing Violet, his smile disappeared instantly. She approached him, her heart racing. "Sheriff, we need to talk. It's about my parents. I know everything." Her voice trembled, but her determination kept her steady. The conversation quickly escalated. Thompson, realizing what she was insinuating, stepped closer with a look of disdain. "You don't know who you're dealing with, girl. It's best you go home and forget all of this." But Violet refused to be intimidated. "I'm not going to let this go. I have proof, and if necessary, I'll take it to the press." The climax of the story occurred when the sheriff, now furious, threatened Violet. However, a group of officers entered the room, alerted by an anonymous call Violet had made before arriving. Confusion erupted, and amid the chaos, she handed over her evidence. "You can't side with crime. Here's what I know. The documents, the recordings, expose everything. I won't let you destroy any more lives." Violet's courage illuminated the room, and the tension intensified. In the end, Thompson was arrested, and the schemes involving her parents and the criminal group began to unravel. But the cost was high. Violet's parents were prosecuted, and the town she once knew changed forever. Violet left the sheriff's office with a heavy heart. She had saved her town, but at the expense of her own family. What had once been a life of illusion was now marked by scars and the harsh reality of truth. The town of Willow Creek breathed a sigh of relief, but Violet felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had made the hardest decision of her life, sacrificing her family's safety for the greater good. Yet, despite the emotional scars she would carry, she knew she had grown stronger. The love for her family still burned in her heart, but truth was now her ally. What is more important, to protect those we love, or to fight for the truth? Violet had found her answer, and now it was time to move forward, even if the road was full of challenges. As the last rays of sunlight set over Willow Creek, the story of Violet Anderson echoed through the streets, resonating in every corner, in every heart. The dilemma she faced, between loyalty to her family and the pursuit of truth, left an indelible mark not just on her life, but on the entire town. Violet teaches us that sometimes courage is the hardest decision of all, and that truth, however painful, will always find a way. And now, we want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in Violet's place? Would you protect your family or fight for the truth? Leave your answer in the comments and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story filled with emotion and twists, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our upcoming narratives. Join us in the search for stories that make us reflect, inspire us, and connect us. See you next time.